Pitch Talks special feature.
So in part one of our discussion, we discussed about obviously certain numbers to do with the lockdown in regards to grassroots, the cessation of grassroots football. And some of the numbers are extremely concerning, especially when it comes to children and their mental health and well-being in regards to the lockdown. And towards the end of part one, you talked about the future, and where I want to go is, I mean, with childhood obesity rates in this country being what they are, and also the mental health of children being so kind of disproportionately affected, especially within the BAME community. I don't really like the acronym personally. How much do you think the impact has been kind of worsened by the fact that these teams were allowed to start the season and then the season was just abruptly stopped after a month and a half, 2 months? Because for me, I'm looking at it from obviously the adult side of it, with the grassroots side. It's a case of, with Ibis Eagles, we've been working on getting a fifth team together, and because we've had good numbers come into training, we submitted it to the league. And ironically, about a week or so before this lockdown was announced, the league ratified it and said, yeah, you guys can have a fifth team. But now that this lockdown's come, my personal concern is, and I'm referee secretary at the club, my concern is that we could potentially have a massive step backwards in terms of momentum, because we were getting forward momentum after the first lockdown. It was a case of a lot of people came out of it and were like, oh God, I just want to play. People were chomping at the bit to play. But then now that it's been taken away so soon into the season, I think we've only played like 4 or 5 games, and it's like it being taken away so soon, I think could have a massively negative impact. I mean, some people will be like, oh, okay, cool, all right, we'll wait out the month, or if it lasts 3 months potentially, because of the furlough scheme being extended into March, when the lockdown's only supposed to be to January, which looks sinister already. But as mentioned earlier, I think with grassroots football has been struggling generally anyway. And I think these interruptions in momentum, plus the Premier League showing their hand in terms of their greed with Project Big Picture and rumours of this European Super League and all that, for me, there's a massive fear that, not that grassroots football is resilient, so I don't think it'll completely disappear. I don't think this will be the death knell, but I think this will be one of the most serious challenges, if not the most serious challenge, that grassroots football has ever faced. And we're already seeing it with youngsters in youth football. I said, with the numbers read out from the first part, with the numbers from Youth Sport Trust. So we're already seeing those challenges manifesting at youth level, and at adult level, I think there will be challenges as well. Different challenges, albeit, but I think there will be challenges for clubs staying afloat. Because a lot of clubs, like say Ibis Eagles, we rely on membership and people paying match fees and that. And we've got pitch hire costs. So all of those things were making it tough enough to run a club. Now, with the cessation for a month, and it could be even more, there's a major concern. I personally see it as there's a major concern there.
In terms of, and if you're asking about the impact,
which I am, and also do you think, and also childhood obesity as well, like the physical impact as well as the mental impact. I mean, what do you think going forward after these lockdowns? What do you think the impact is going to be going forward? Do you think youth football is going to be decimated, never to come back, or is it going to be limited to only schools in say 6, 7, 8 months time? I mean, do you think it's going to stay like that, or is it going to open back up?
No, it will open back up. It will be a case of where like as I mentioned in the first in part one, I think with grassroots football, academies need to with elite football, academies need to run. That's the problem. So in order to shut down elite football, unless you say, well, unless you're playing school football every Saturday morning, you won't get noticed by the big teams like Chelsea, like Arsenal, like Liverpool
champions. Yeah, so I had to get that one in.
Man City, Manchester United. You can be noticed by any of them, but unless you're actually playing schools football, then grassroots football will continue. It has to happen just simply because if teams like Arsenal and all those want to make money off of those players, fun enough, at the age of 9, 10, 11 years old, then they have to find them somewhere. Unless they're going to say, well, we need to make sure that schools football runs better than grassroots football, well, you better find a way for this to work. And if they're not willing to put their money in their pocket, I can't see the FA doing it.
So do you think grassroots football and youth football, do you think they will have to massively adapt because they're not going to get the help potentially from the FA, who have obviously cut their budgets, and the Premier League, who, as we've said for years, are just selfish?
The league, the thing about playing in Premier League football is that you basically become an elite team with ideas of what you want to do in the next few years. So in order for a team like Leeds to now become a sustainable team, they've got to look at their finances over the next few years. That goes without saying. But if you're talking about the so-called top six, they don't really have to do that because they've got enough sponsors just to actually cover the costs. So then if they're going to have an academy like Spurs, like Arsenal, both of them play in North London. However, let's look at the women's section. Arsenal as a region have the north of London covered. Hence the reason why there isn't an academy or regional talent centre for Tottenham Hotspur women. But they're going to have to find those players somewhere. So unless Arsenal Academy or Arsenal Boys Academy or Arsenal Women's Academy now look at it and go, well, we need to bring in better players. Well, are you going to keep signing players from overseas? Because that's the direction that you're going to have to go in order to find players, and you won't be able to sign players under the age of 18. That's the necessary situation here, because Manchester City and Atletico Madrid and Real Madrid all got caught with that. Chelsea got caught with that. A lot of teams have been caught with signing players at a young age without actually doing anything with them. That was the problem.
Yeah, and giving inducements to the parents and that. I mean, Chelsea, funnily enough, they had that transfer ban recently, but even before that, the Gael Kakuta thing a few years ago. So they've got a history of doing that. And there's a number of other clubs doing it. Man City have been stung before, but I think as well where the bigger clubs, the elite clubs, Premier League clubs, and Championship, and etc. Yeah, they can find ways around it, but also they've got the finances to be able. Yeah, they've got the sponsors to be able to survive, but they've got the revenue coming in. Is where I'm going. To survive the game being paused for say 2-3 months. But in grassroots football, there's not that financial base there for it. So for me, I think it's unfair, especially because it's been said that at grassroots level, I mean, we as Ibis Eagles, we were taking all the necessary precautions. We were spraying and or wiping down footballs. We were doing social distancing in our bar area was doing social distancing. Chiswick Cricket Club, they were doing that because they have to. We also were not offering changing facilities, post-match facilities at clubs. A lot of it was like vacuum packed. Merton FC, for instance, was vacuum packed sandwiches and that. So instead of the usual cooking that they do, like say bangers and beans, it would be just pre-packed sandwiches and that kind of thing. And for me, it's one of them where it's like I just look at it as grassroots football is kind of really struggle. And remember, we're volunteers. I mean, I said as referee secretary, I'm a volunteer. Everyone else is. I mean, we were trying our best to work within those tight restrictions. But I can only imagine how much more difficult it is with children, because children below, say, the age of, say, 8 or 9 or 10, they're not going to fully understand the gravity of the situation. No. I think that's a massive issue as well, and a massive difference between adult grassroots football and then youth football as well. I mean, how much different is it at youth level? Because obviously we can explain to adults, and okay, they get it. They may not agree with it, they may not want to do it, but they get it. But with kids, it's a lot more difficult to explain, right, this is a deadly pandemic. Because you don't want to scare the crap out of them. You want them to still enjoy their football, but these restrictions and limitations have changed everything, haven't they?
The problem with the restrictions and the limitations is that, yeah, you have to explain what the pandemic is, and I think parents have found a way just to explain it without actually putting the fear into their kids. The issue is, and this is what I found as a growing concern, is there are a lot more teams being built off the back of not just the pandemic, but just in general, because somebody didn't like somebody else. And that usually becomes the problem. So when I look at teams in certain areas, for where I live at the moment, I can already count within a 3-mile radius 5 teams. That to me doesn't make any sense whatsoever.
So do you think those teams, that instead of 5 teams popping up, it would be better if it was, say, 2 teams and they concentrated and put their resources together?
Yes. Because what essentially you're doing is saying, well, we're having to do this in our club. Somebody else has to come and help us, or they've got to come and check if we've done our job correctly. Rather than as a universal thing, you're all working together to achieve the same goal. Not, oh well, I don't like this person, so I'm going to just take my son or my daughter somewhere else. And then find that it's not what you thought, or it is what you thought, but then months down the line you can't get yourself out of it. It's now a case of, well, here's the ironic twist. You've gone to a club that's literally 3 miles down the road, so you haven't left. You've just shifted. You haven't changed. You've adapted. What you've done is just moved from one place. You've literally taken a step on one turf and gone to another. So it's literally like walking across the park. That is it. That's like doing the same thing at Everton and Liverpool. Stanley Park is literally a mile between the two. So then what have you done? Yeah, pretty much. Well, being up there, it's a lot more. It's basically a bait.
No. I mean, I've been up myself, but the illustration is there. It's like you can be at Anfield and see Goodison, and vice versa. It's like you can literally eyeball it.
I've worked it out.
And I mean, we've got a couple of clubs like that ourselves. We've got civil service literally across the fence. We got Old Meads in the amateur football combination just across the way. Then we got Polytechnic the other way as well. So it's like you got clubs in those clusters there.
And that's the issue though, because you've got so many clubs who are all trying to fight to find out whether their club is going to be better than another, or whether their system or their way of doing things is better than somebody else's. The problem is well, somebody said, well, I don't want to be here, so they've gone and set something else up, literally a step away from the last one. So then you haven't changed anything. You haven't changed all you've tried to do is change the group dynamic, which means that all you've taken away is the kit, the fees, and the players. Yes, you need the players and the officials to grow the club, but as far as I'm looking at it, all you have to do is just change it. Now, if you're now becoming a completely new club, well, you've got to start all of that process all over again, which means that if you started at the bottom, and to quote Drake, starting from the bottom, now we're here, you're pretty much saying, well, I've got to do that within one season with the coronavirus shutting us down.
Yeah, I was going to say, with the potential of that.
Yeah, with the coronavirus possibly shutting us down. So how have you, what do you need to do? Well, we don't know, but that's the problem here.
But speaking of that, though, do you think it's a little unfair that youth indoor and grassroots sides have had to completely stop, but lower league teams, lower than the National League, who are in the FA Cup, for instance, do you think it's unfair that they've gotten to carry on, obviously if they're in the FA Cup, because they can adhere to elite conditions whilst they're in the FA Cup? Do you think it's unfair that they've gotten to carry on? Because I understand why the National League has carried on, because they had, 22 million quid worth of government grant to just start their season. So it would have been, economically, it would have been a farce. And that was only granted, a few weeks ago. So it would have been an absolute farce to postpone, at the very least, the National League. So I can understand that. But do you think it's a bit unfair that everybody else has basically had to stop, even though it's been said that the transmission levels are actually very low, extremely low in outdoor sports?
At the moment, the country is, England are looking at a shortage of funding within grassroots football. And that's been a growing trend since, I think, 2014, 2015, possibly even longer. Yeah,
I'd say longer, considering we've run some of the numbers on Pitch Talk shows.
Yeah, there's been a lot of teams going out of business in over the years, just simply because of how they run. So, do I think it's fair? My answer to that is, if it was fair, it would have made more sense to shut all football down. Mm-hmm. Just shut all football down so that nobody can have this conversation. Yeah. That way you can go, okay, well, the Premier League's not running, so what's the problem? Mm-hmm. Championship's not running, what's the problem? League 1, League 2, National League, South and North, not running, so what's the problem? Mm. That was where the problem lies, and that's where everybody's kind of gone, well, why is it so much for this and so much for that? If you just said it as a universal rule, no football is allowed to play for the next 4 weeks, and everybody has to isolate, like everybody did. From what I noticed in the Premier League, they found ways to socially distance while staying at home and coach. They found a way to coach. They found a way to have their conversations. Again, Zoom calls, WhatsApp calls, group chats. Everybody found ways just to have those conversations, and the impact was on the side. From what I noticed, in my opinion, the other side of it was psychologically. There's a four corner module for the long term, the player development model. When you hear it from a coach, that's what you're looking at. So you're looking at the technical stuff, you're looking at the physical stuff, you're looking at the social stuff, and you're looking at the psychological. You can flip those on its head to say psychological is more important than social, technical, and physical. They all intertwine with each other. Mm-hmm. But the thing that I want to get from that is, psychologically, people actually found a way to adapt very quickly.
Well, okay, I want to stick on that, because you mentioned about adaptation and also the Zoom calls, WhatsApp calls, and that kind of thing. As a youth coach, mm-hmm. Like we were talking before the cameras were turning, and you had a Zoom call literally this morning. So it's a case of, how has that transition been for you as a coach? How different are sessions via Zoom as opposed to being out there kicking a ball, and how has that changed? And also, do you think that is the way forward? Do you think that that's the future of coaching? That's exactly where I was going to
go. I knew that was coming.
Because that's how we're going to round out. Because that's the key.
So, to answer the last question, I think Zoom calls will happen just simply because if you are allowed to record a session, or record a game, that's pretty much what you're doing with a Zoom call. All you're doing is just a live recording of something that you want to see in action.
Yeah.
That's the difference. And with the technology that everybody's talking about nowadays, where you just need to get permission, well, a Zoom call pretty much is permission from the parent to say we are allowed to do this as a with ourselves, to say, well, let's do the session in live action.
So is it making things a bit easier for you, especially with seeking permission? Because obviously with children, you have to have written permission from parents usually. So
the funny thing is, it's like doing a one-to-one with a player. But if you were to do it in a group, it's still the same thing. It's one-to-ones. With the Zoom calls, it's helped me to change the way that I do things. And like as I said, I'm a development coach. I prefer to work with the person specifically rather than the whole team. And the reason why is because I now can become a bit more understanding of the player, so that I can give them something that they really will challenge themselves to do in the future. Especially if I'm only giving them a bit of information now that they'll take on in years time, years or months times. That's the first thing. Let me go back to the original question. The first question. What was the first question?
Basically, how has it affected you as a coach? Again, you spoke of adaptation and that. So how has it affected you as a coach? Because you say Zoom calls are the way forward. So how much of it?
To the point where I look at my coaching and I think, well, back in the days, and I like to say that because
it makes you feel old.
Younger than you, my man. I'm younger than you, my man.
Yes, that's true. No, fair play.
No, I hear that. But no.
Does he remember Mighty Morphin Power Rangers? I'm not sure.
I still remember the movie, unfortunately. So
the movie? I'm talking about the first 3 seasons. But how much has it affected you, and what how much has affected you as a youth coach?
As a youth coach, and as a person who probably has been told and been encouraged, ironically, by FA coaches to use video evidence, I still think it's a bit shaky. But I first of all say to everybody, are you happy with doing this, before I actually go, you know what, we're doing a Zoom call. In, I think, 10 years' time, people are just going to go, we're doing a Zoom call, end of. That's it. That's how we're going to do our sessions when we're not at training. Yeah. And it's going to be like, well, you didn't give me that option. At the moment, people will be skeptical because it's literally a child with an adult on a video. And because of the whole situations surrounding that, at the moment, people are going, well, I don't like this. Of course. But over time, I think because of the way things will be moving forward, people will look at doing more sessions with players. And if they know that they've only got, let's say that they've only got 1 session a week, they'll look at doing a second session on a different day on a Zoom call. And it'll just be a case of, okay, well, if I do my session on a Monday, come Thursday or Friday, come Thursday or Friday or even Wednesday, we're doing a Zoom call just so that we can keep up to date with our development sessions. Anything beyond that, you've got to do it yourself. And that's to me, that will be the way forward. But again, that will be the conversation that people will need to have first to go, well, I'm happy for you to do this. You have to build that trust, number one. Number two, you have to kind of go, well, as a coach, this is what I'm doing it for. And if people still think, you know what, I don't want to do it, then you can go, you know what, fair enough. Somebody else will, as far as I'm concerned. And people will recognize that they need to, you're giving the power back to the player to say, well, if you don't actually train, well, what's going to happen on Saturday when it comes to the game, and you've only done literally an hour's training session, and then come Saturday, you may feel like you're not part of the team because everybody else has done the Zoom call. You haven't, but then at the same time you're going, well, mummy didn't tell me or daddy didn't tell me. Well, I can't do anything about that. Yeah. I've encouraged it.
No, it's not your issue anymore.
No, yeah. I've just encouraged it and I've left that. Today's Zoom call was pretty good. It was pretty good, and all of the players were brilliant for what they did. And I'm proud of the parents for allowing this. So, thank you, parents. But it's just one of those things where I think it's a future thing because of what we are now promoting in this country as it needs to be video evidence. So again, I'm going to go back to TikTok. I'm going to go back to Snapchat. I'm going to go to Instagram. I'm going to go back to all the other things. I'll even go as to say YouTube. You find skills, and I normally tell the players to look at the skills on YouTube rather than just sitting on there and looking for videos to dance to. If you can find a skill, transfer it onto your feet, and then bring it to training on Saturday, or Monday and Wednesday, then please do so. Please do so. I'd prefer to see you come with some creativity, and I'll go, well done. But that's the difference between somebody coming to me and going, well, I sat on the TV and I didn't know what I was watching. Then I played PlayStation, and then I came to training. And to me, that would mean that I don't have a player that wants to play. They're just being forced to. Because you can't do anything with that. That's just a case of, well, you've tried to make them feel as good as possible within football. But you can only do so much. It's like it's like the old saying of leading the horse to water and allowing the horse to drink.
I thought that saying was you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink.
God.
He's adapting. He's adapting already. Christ, he's adapting gross. But you know what? Yeah, this has been an enlightening chat. We're gonna have to come back to this. We're gonna have to come back to this stuff. But
Three parts.
Yeah. Well, maybe. But I have been straight shooting LJA
JBK.
And you know what? Thank you for joining us for this Pitch Talk special feature, this 2-part special feature segment on grassroots football and the lockdown in England. How's it going to affect football? Facebook.com/Pitch Talk. Become a fan, become a friend, become a member of the group. Join the footballing revolution we're trying to create or recreate in this way, because we're bigger and better than ever. We got Nathan Arsenal and JBK on the team now, as well as Straight Shooting LJ, the G-Man and Jazzy Fizzle. Twitter.com/Pitch Talk or @Pitch Talk on Twitter. Tweet with us, follow us, see what we are up to. We're on Instagram as well, @Pitch Talk on Instagram. Instagram.com/Pitch Talk. YouTube.com/Pitch Talk for all of the videos, including Coaching with JBK, which is Jamie's vlog, the Straight Shooting View, and 5 Minutes with the G-Man's vlog as well. We got more content coming all the time, so keep an eye out for those. Like, subscribe, hey, get those notifications as well, so you know when our stuff is dropping. We got audio coming too, so it is all good in the hood. Once again, I've been Straight Shooting LJA, and on behalf of myself, the G-Man, Jazzy Fizzle, Nathan Arsenal, and
JBK,
we will see you guys next time. Thank you for joining us on this Pitch Talk special feature.
Pitch Talk special feature.